My proposition is that the hollow elite is as dysfunctional in its way as the new lower class is in its way. Personally, and as families, its members are successful, but they have abdicated their responsibility to set and promulgate standards. Close quote. Well, explain yourself.
We are now in the age of non-judgmentalism. You go to any college campus and you try to engage the students there in a discussion of right and wrong. And
excuse me, Dr. Murray, you mean appropriate and inappropriate?
Inappropriate, or relative to the situation that we, and who are we to prescribe to others? Well, here's the problem. Every vital civilization, and I'm drawing actually on the work of Arnold Toynbee here, who wasn't right about everything, but I think he was right about some very important things. Civilizations.
Toynbee is a famous historian who compares more than 20 civilizations across the long sweep of history. The works.
Couple volumes, 10 volumes,
10 volumes
for the whole thing.
Early 20th century? I'm trying to
No, mid-20th century.
Mid-20th, all right.
Yeah, and it's an incredible work of erudition. But anyway, he says, look, the sign of a growing culture, a vital culture, is a dominant creative minority, as he calls it, who set the tone. And the rest of the society follows along. And this creative minority is confident, it's energetic, and then when you have a declining civilization, the creative minority becomes a dominant minority, still runs the country, but it no longer has the confidence in its own rightness and of what it's doing. And that's what I think I see happening in the United States.
Okay, so fumbling around to understand the argument, a couple of examples come to mind. One in its way commendable, the other not commendable ever. And the one that was for a time in its way commendable is the British, 19th century British. Make what you will of colonialism. There's verve and self-confidence, and then by about the 30s, they've lost their own self-confidence.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
It's one of the most dramatic examples, and Gertrude Himmelfarb's book, The Idea of Poverty, is a wonderful source for this. The British upper class, no, not the aristocracy, the upper middle class.
It's the colonels, not the generals,
the Victorians.
but
the Victorians.
Right.
They propagandized the whole country into buying into their system of morals. And as a result, you had this incredibly rapidly urbanizing society, which actually experienced falling crime during the same period of its most dislocating urbanization. When you presented a letter of recommendation when you were seeking a new job, it was called your character.
Queen Victoria, we have in her diaries, one of the first diary entries after she becomes queen at the age of 18, she writes, "I will be good. I will be good."
Peter, I'm so glad you used that word because it brings out another point I want to emphasize with the hollow elite. What do we teach our children now? We teach them to be nice. We teach them to share their toys, not to hit each other and so forth. The idea that being good is a thing that you aim toward with all of the self-discipline, the thinking ahead to long-term consequences, and the rest that being good requires.
The remorse, which you rightly experience when you've done something bad.
Something bad. All of these things are not part of the raising of our children. We want them to be nice. Being nice is a way of moment to moment not creating trouble. It is not a way of inculcating standards of behavior that will get you through tough times. And that's a major part of the hollowness of the elite.
Coming apart, quote, here's the way to solve the problem, quote, over the course of the 20th century, Western Europe developed an alternative to the American model, the advanced welfare state, that provides a great deal of personal freedom in all areas of life except the economic ones. You write that more and more Americans, including, quote, prominent academics and the leaders of the Democratic Party, close quote, believe we should embrace the European model, improving life in Fishtown by expanding the welfare state. Well, why not? The new upper class has gotten so rich, tax them a little more, just take care of people in Fishtown.
Right. What harm can that do?
Yes. Well, what harm can it do?
It goes to the pursuit of happiness. And if you take happiness seriously as a concept, and I use Aristotle as my guide for that, you're talking about lasting and justified satisfaction with life as a whole. And you ask yourself, now what is it that gives people lasting and justified satisfaction with life in a whole? And it has been my argument that I've been writing about for many years, that basically you've just got 4 domains within which that happens. And those are family, faith, community, and vocation. Now you don't have to...
Vocation meaning something a little larger than job.
Yeah, it's well, in most cases, it's the work you do for a living, but I will also include avocations with that, or causes. But I'm saying that's basically all there are. And that in order for a person to pursue happiness, those institutions of meaning, if you want to use that phrase, have to be rich and vital. Well, how is it that a family is rich, the family structure is rich and vital? It's because the family has things that won't get done unless the family does them. There has to be responsibility placed on the institution called the family to make it rich and vital. Same thing goes with community. Same thing goes with all of them. And what the welfare state does, in my view, and I reserve all of this for Chapter 17, so that my friends...
You don't pick a fight until the last moment.
My friends on the left can read the whole book, and I tell them you are absolutely free to read everything so far and say what he's really done is make a case for a redistribution of state. Okay, that's fine with me. But in Chapter 17, I say the problem with the welfare state is it drains the life from life. By trying to smooth over the bumps, trying to lend a helping hand, it ineluctably, inevitably takes away the stuff of life from these institutions. And those are as essential for a person in Fishtown as they are for a person in Belmont.
So what do we do?
What's
the
you,
Marie
you would
program?
ask that, wouldn't you? Everybody wants to know the solution. Well, I will tell you what the solution is not. It is not a system of domestic service where we draft all young people and send them out to mix with each other. That won't work. It's not a renewal of the draft. It's not government regulations.
You're not going to force these 2 cultures to mix.
It's not a matter of just me being a libertarian and horrified by that prospect. It's a matter of me, who made his living as a program evaluator, saying, ain't going to work. Here's what has to happen before we even have a chance at a solution. We have to have a cultural shift in our attitude toward what's going on. That means, for example, for the people encapsulated in their enclaves, they're super rich, super well-educated enclaves with their own culture.
The super zips.
The super zips.
Super zip codes.
They've got to figure out, do you really want your children to grow up as hothouse flowers? Do you really want your children to be unaware of this rich panoply of life that is out there in America that right now they have not an inkling about? And if you don't want that, there are things you can do. I won't try to go into the specifics. I did it by moving to a town of 270 people. That worked pretty well. No, I'm sorry, 170 people. That worked pretty well, but you don't have to be that extreme. We have to have, for something like births to unmarried women, sort of as a natural statement that journalists make when they write articles about problems of disadvantaged neighborhoods or whatever, that in fact being born to unmarried women causes all sorts of problems for the children in their future life, independently of poverty and independently of parental education. That has to be in the air. You don't have to demonize women who have babies out of wedlock.
That's just telling the truth.
You just got to tell the truth about the costs associated with that. So there has to be a cultural shift. The cultural shift will not occur until we are all contemplating the nature of the problem, and that is what I've tried to do in the book.
We support Obamacare? That helps?
No,
you don't want to be dragged into the current,
that expression on my face.
You don't want to be dragged into the current mud fight.
Yeah, no, but Obamacare is ancillary to the kinds of things I'm talking about, as I think a lot of
it is a symptom.
Yeah, it's a symptom of the increasing welfare state, but whether Obamacare is repealed or not repealed is going to twiddle at the margins with the kinds of dynamics I'm talking about. No, there is almost no direct, immediate, concrete policy implication of the book. There are huge implications for how we need to think about the nature of the problem. And I think of the book as starting a conversation. Or I'd like to think that it starts hundreds of thousands or millions of conversations, even though that's a little overambitious.
Charles Murray, author of Coming Apart, would you close our conversation today by simply reading a passage from your book?
I would like that. Thank you, Peter. A man who is holding down a menial job and thereby supporting a wife and children is doing something authentically important with his life. He should take deep satisfaction from that and be praised by his community for doing so. If that same man lives under a system that says the children of the woman he sleeps with will be taken care of whether or not he contributes, then that status goes away. Taking the trouble out of life strips people of major ways in which human beings look back on their lives and say, I made a difference. Raising a family, supporting yourself, being a good friend and a good neighbor, learning what you can do well and then doing it as well as you possibly can, providing the best possible framework for doing those things is what the American project is all about. When I say that the American project is in danger, that's the nature of the loss I have in mind, the loss of the framework through which people can best pursue happiness.
Charles Murray, author of Coming Apart, thank you.
It's been my pleasure.
For Uncommon Knowledge, I'm Peter Robinson.